and or welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that bell icon and go ahead and subscribe. Because if not, what are you doing with your life? I mean, seriously, what are you doing? Hi, Fire Lotus. So, for one, I was initially going to be doing this live while I was constructing something, but I've already constructed that one. I've already ate, and if you haven't, this is your reminder to go eat something and drink something. Go drink some water. But anyways, so I stitched a video on the platform of TikTok. We were talking about Deathwitchery, and this particular creator, which is amazing, asked the question that they heard: in order to become a Death Witch during the initiation process, you basically either have to die or have a near-death experience and or have an astral death. That is incorrect. Kind of. Technically incorrect. So, wait, let me make sure I have these. Live chat. Okay. There we go. So, that's what today's live is going to be about. Death magic and death witchery. So, in certain cultures and or certain practices, they may have rituals like that, but that's not the type that I do. So, a book that I recommended in that live, you can also find it in the link tree that will be listed with this live, technically after the live's over. But the book is called Is it in here? Do I have it in here? No, I do not. I believe it's called Walking. Hello. It's fuck. I should have wrote that thing down. Wow. Walking the Twilight Path, a Gothic Book of the Dead. If you were to go to any search engine and type that in, it will pop up. And hello. But I would suggest that book if you are interested in becoming what is known now as a Death Witch. The other term of that, the modern or the less modern term, is actually necromancy, which is basically working with the dead. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, thank you. It's supposed to be pink, but it's been fading, so I'm eventually going to have to re-up it. But yes, thank you. So that book, Walking the Twilight Path, the reason that I encourage people to read that book is because, for one, it took the author, the beginning starts with a Michelle. I'm not going to butcher their last name because it's French. But hello. They basically had a lot of health problems. So in the process of that, they have passed away multiple times through surgeries and things like that. So in the process of 10 years, they wrote a book, which is a ritual. The book in itself is a 1-year ritual. And basically, what the book is designed to do is for you to have a symbolic near death experience without ever putting your life in danger in any way, shape, or form. So basically, each chapter at the end of it, there are specific rites and rituals that you do. The very first one revolves clipping your fingernails and cutting a little bit of your hair and basically destroying it, as in you were basically signifying that you were about to take that journey of being reborn in a way. But I do have to have a warning. If you suffer from, like I do, I am bipolar manic depressive, so I have more manic depressive episodes than I do ups. So if you at any point in time are in a depressive episode or experiencing depression, or if you're just in a low spot, do not read that book. Do not try anything in that book, because death magic and working with death, I'm not going to say it's very depressing, because it's not, but it's extremely heavy. If you've never booked a reading with me and you don't know the reason that I'm using that term for me is a term that's basically stating it's heavy in energy and emotions. Not good nor bad. It's just very heavy. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for putting that. Hello. Seriously though, thank you. Yes, that is the book title, so you can write it down and like add it to your list. That author also wrote 2 other books, the Psychic Vampire Codex and or the Energy Codex, which basically teaches you how to do energy work, which is the basics behind the magic that I do, which is energy manipulation. But I am in fact a death witch. And I discovered this in a 2-year spiritual awakening that I was going through, where I was constantly surrounded by death. I just did not know the term. Eventually, when I landed on TikTok, that's when I learned the term, which is what they call themselves now, which is Deathwitch. Um, and it is in fact what it sounds like. You are working with the dead. There are some. I'm one of them. We're known as psychopumps, and yes, you can be a psychopump and not be a death witch, and you can be a death witch and not be a psychopump. A psychopump is basically a person who has the ability to help spirits cross over. Now, with me, I do have that ability. I do not like using it that much because, like, I don't randomly have spirits come to me and they're like, "Hey, help me cross over." I have specifically more recently. I did it with my familiar and a few other animals that throughout this year they passed away due to complications at birth with the kittens. But in the process of that, you don't. I hate using the term summon because it's not like you're saying, "Yo, death, show up," as much as you are calling death forth to help death relay that spirit to wherever it goes on the other side. But in the process of doing that, it takes you to a very, hello, it takes you to a very, very heavy void. I'm not even going to say dark place. It takes you to a void. And that void is what I would consider chaos because it is everything. It is life, it is death, it is the opposite of both. It is a void. And that sticks with you, it lingers on you. And it takes time to recuperate back from that. So yes, working with death, you are in a very, very heavy state most of the time. Like how I have my house set up, it's basically a spiritual bathhouse. What does that mean? If you've seen that movie where I got that title from, you already know. But basically, it is Spirited Away, by the way. It is basically, I've set up this location to where any spirits, whether I know them, whether they're just wandering, they can come here and kind of just chill out and relax. And as I'm saying that, I'm getting fucking goosebumps. Now there are some spirits that can be on the property, but they are not allowed in the house. Another term that I recently learned is called a hot spirit. Now, a hot spirit is basically one of those spirits that you'll meet, and it's kind of like, you know, that teacher that was really, really hard on you, but they were hard on you for a specific reason. That's a hot spirit. It's not good. It's not bad. It could be bad. It could be good. It could be negative, but it's going to be hard or harsh on you, but it's there to teach you a specific lesson. Um, so on Witch Talk, as much as I do not like that term, a lot of people always say, you know, watch out the spirits that you're going to mess with. Make sure you have protection so no malevolent spirits can show up. You can receive messages and help from what is considered a malevolent spirit. You just have to set those boundaries, and you also have to be able to basically read the spirit that you were communicating with. Um, Now the crazy thing is before I even knew what a death witch was, and before I even got the book Walking the Twilight Path, um, when I moved in with my grandmother when I was 16, who took me in when I was kicked out of my house, um, we lived right next to I believe it's a cemetery because there was a church attached to it. And yes, if y'all did not know, that is the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard. One has a church attached to it, and the other one does not. But I used to literally spend hours walking around listening to music, but also taking care of the spirits and the graves there because this was one of those churches out in the bumfuck middle of nowhere. So you didn't really have a lot of people. I did not know that that can be a part of death work because you're helping the spirits, you're taking care of them. Now, I was practicing at that point, but I did not know what death magic was. I didn't even know it was a thing. Again, that term is also known as necromancy, but because of what Hollywood has done to the term necromancy, it gets a bad rap. Not to mention, you do have some people. Another decisive with necromancy is normally when you hear the term necromancy, you are hearing or you think about a spirit or a practitioner that will force a spirit to do whatever the fuck it wants. The ancestor jar that I created due to the original recipe that I found online, it in fact did that, which is you're supposed to use um, actual like ashes and or graveyard dirt from a specific grave, and in the process of the original recipe, you are binding that spirit to that jar. We don't do that here because why would you want to control a fucking spirit? Now, with that being said, can you talk to a spirit and not necessarily make a deal, but kind of have, you know, hey, if you do this for me, I can do that for you? Yes, but again, you need to be able to read the spirits. You need to be able to venerate the fuck out of them, which is questioning them, interrogating them, if you will, to make sure what you're working with is, in fact, what you are working with. You need to set boundaries. Yes, if you did not know, you can set boundaries with spirits, gods, goddesses. It is important to do that. It is also important to note that just because we're talking about this, and a question that I helped answer, it is extremely hard to insult or annoy a spirit. I mean, not a spirit, a deity. God or goddess, it's extremely hard to annoy them or piss them off, if you will. They're celestial beings, okay? They've been around for eons. Unless you straight up are disrespectful to them, you're pretty good. But anyways, Death Witch. So there are different types of death witchery. There are some actual cultures and some specific practices that do have a set rule thing of the proper ways of doing things. With me, again, it kind of fell in my lap. Like, I did not choose to be a death witch as much as a death witch chose to be me. And I know that sounds fucking cliche, but it's the truth. Um, and it all happened in that 2 year span. And then after that, when I came back here, was when I actually started working with my ancestors, working with my spirits, working with death, being surrounded by death. Like vultures, for an example. I'm saying that because two of them are perched up on the dock. Vultures, in certain spiritual practices, they represent life, death, and rebirth. They can also be messengers from the spirit world, just like most birds are associated with. Um, but yeah, death witchery, it sounds so fucking cool and like macabre, but I mean, a lot of us do. Like with me, the cemeteries and graveyards around me, I've walked them before. I love it. It's one of the most peaceful places you can go because it's quiet. It's not loud. It's not noisy. Now, when we're talking about graveyard dirt, is there a alternative to graveyard dirt if you cannot actually get graveyard dirt? By the way, there are multiple different types. There's graveyard dirt, which is just dirt from the actual cemetery and or graveyard. No, not from a grave, just from the actual place. Then there are some that are actually from the grave. Before you go collecting dirt from the grave, specifically, there's this right here that I have. It's not necessarily from a grave as much as it's from a old school brick, as an old school. It literally crumbles now. From a Civil War area that I went to. I went through all the proper steps of asking if I could get it, but before you go and take from an actual grave, there are things that you need to know depending on how you're going to use it. For one, you need to know the spirit, or at least the information. Why is that important? So, say you were going to try to find, say you were going to do a healing spell, right? But it called for graveyard dirt. And you go and you're called to one specific grave, you collect that dirt, and come to find out when you do digging, this person was a really, really toxic unaliver, if you will. That's not something you necessarily want attracted with healing work. Now, say you during that healing spell and you did your research and you find a doctor that specializes in that, and they were really, really good in life as far as you can research. Then you would go there, you would commune with that spirit, ask it if it is okay. Now, here's something that they're not teaching you on TikTok. There are actual, like, okay, a body is laying in a grave. You can collect it, you can collect it from its shoulder, its head, its feet, its elbows, and this is just the placement on the actual grave. Each one specifically means something. So there's some research to do. Y'all know I like giving homework. And I also recently just learned that from one of the books that I was reading. All the books that I have in my collection currently are on a Amazon list that will be linked with the link tree after this is non-live. It's called the Magical Library. That is all the books that you can find on Amazon that I have in my collection. But yeah, now could you go out and actually find a unaliver and use that dirt in a spell? Fuck yes, you can. But again, you need to also know the proper ways of entering a cemetery and or graveyard without pissing the guardian off. What the fuck is the guardian, Lotus? Every cemetery and or graveyard has what is known as a guardian. Now, in some, it's going to be different too of what that guardian is. But say, for an example, in Appalachia, depending on the area or region, a lot of people believe the very first person that was ever buried there becomes the guardian, which is a guardian of the souls that are there. You do not want to piss that off because trust me, it's not going to be fun. Also, on top of that, we also have to think of what a cemetery is or a graveyard is. It's also what is known as a crossroad. It's a linear space, it's a space in between. You can pick up hitchhikers there. Basically, they are spirits or even parasites that kind of just fuck with you. They're not really evil, they're not really good, they're just, we'll say, a trickster, if you will. They can be very difficult to actually get rid of. So look up multiple resources. Do not use Google. Use DuckDuckGo or even Bing. Google's not good to do research on this specific subject. DuckDuckGo is. But again, you're going to go to multiple resources, books, websites, blogs, YouTube videos, and after researching all of that, take what resonates with you. Because you're going to get so much information, just like every topic in witchcraft you can ever find. You're going to get stuff that just sounds straight up corny. You're going to get shit that sounds really macabre and dark. In reality, it's not. Most important thing, be respectful. Have offerings as you enter. Depending on what you're doing in the graveyard, have an offering as you enter. Have an offering if you're collecting anything. And by the way, keep this in mind, it is illegal to collect dirt or actually anything from a graveyard or cemetery because it is technically legally considered vandalizing. So be careful. Don't trespass. What are those gifts? They can be pennies. They can be dimes. Now, kudos too if you do this research. Specific pennies made in a specific time frame has more of a metal than the other one does. So yeah, but there's pennies, there's dimes, quarters, spirits as in alcohol, beer, tobacco, whiskey is a really good favorite, coffee. It all depends on how you're reading that energy. You're going to leave the offering before you enter. You're going to state the purpose of why you are there. All of these are extremely important because you do not want to piss off a guardian. And you're probably going to ask, well, okay, what happens if I go there? How do I know if I've accepted or not? If you get a feeling that you just walked in on something, or if you get a feeling like, you know, that old school creepy house that you used to walk across or walk in front of when you were younger, and you just got that vibe where, like, you should not go in there, that's that feeling. Go around, turn around, go somewhere else. And also, like I said, try to do as much research on the spirit that you were collecting that dirt from, because if not, you can fuck yourself up. And just be safe. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, let me know on any specific things. And hello, everybody. And just in general, the more that you hang out in a cemetery or a graveyard, the more that you can befriend, in a way, the spirits that are there. And again, graveyard dirt, you can do it from a sheriff, but be careful with the sheriffs because you know how they say a lot of cops and stuff are crooked. You're not going to want, depending on the workings you're doing, you may not want that energy. But a doctor, a lawyer, a fire department, you name it, you can collect dirt there. Also, while we're collecting dirt, you can also do that with actual physical locations. You're doing a health spell, hospital dirt. You're doing a legal spell, courtyard dirt. You're doing a spell to protect your house against fires, firefighter, police station. You can use police station dirt to call upon the law or to keep the law away. There's even church dirt. Now, when you're looking this up, you may come across a term which is goofer, goofer dust. It can also be considered dirt or primarily dust. There's also, you can collect dust from a church pew or from an actual grave. So instead of collecting the dirt, you're collecting the settlement that's on top of it. And I would store it properly. Now, I have this one in here. Normally, it's on my altar or around my altar. And if a spirit is attached to the graveyard dirt, as in you're going to ask its assistance, it will basically let you know what it likes and what it does not like. And most importantly, before you exit that cemetery or graveyard, and way before you get anywhere near your car, you need to cleanse yourself. Now, There are multiple ways you can do this, sound, smoke, all of that. But there's another thing you can do, which is before you get in your car, after you've exited the cemetery or graveyard, you verbally state, I do not want any spirits to follow me. You are to stay here. Now, obviously, they're not always going to listen, but even if you go paranormal hunting, I hate using that term, but if you're going ghost hunting and shit like that, you need to say the same thing. You need to make sure that they know that they are not allowed to follow you. And then, depending on the vibe you get, if you do get a vibe that like there may be something attached to you, do not go directly home. You're going to trick it basically, where you're going to all these other locations and try to get it off of you before you go home. Also, with graveyard dirt or even cemetery dirt, or my favorite, crossroads dirt, you can also, specifically crossroads, you can collect crossroad dirt and you can bring it to your home and very safely, because you're not trying to open you're not trying to open necessarily a connection where anything can pass through, but you can take that crossroad dirt and you can create it to where it's opening up and it is still attached to that initial linear space, that power source, if you will. But you have to do it to make sure it's not just like an open door where anything can come through, but you still basically can access that specific location of power while at your house. So it's like biolocation. Um, you can do that with all different types of dirt as well. And it necessarily doesn't have to be with dirt, but dirt does kind of seem to work a little bit better. Also, if you're going to do anything outside, I would not necessarily use like a circle of salt, which is how most people were taught. Because too much salt in the earth in itself or in a specific area can raz that, basically meaning nothing will ever be able to grow there because there's so much salt mixed in with it. It fucks all the pH and shit up to where nothing will grow. So try to use like brick dust. You can use crystals, rocks. You don't even have to create a circle. There's throwing the compass, which is a little bit, it's from traditional witchcraft. You can do a square. It doesn't have to be a circle, but you do need to make sure boundaries are set. And one of the main reasons that witches create circles is because you're creating an in between. You were creating a linear, I say it weird, but you were creating an in between, which is what witches do. We can create our own sacred space. But make sure you go through the process of opening it and closing it. Preferably try to have everything you're going to need inside of it before you fully cast it. But there is a way that you can create an energetic door using your finger or whatever tool you're using. And with that, you're basically imagining you cutting a door in just long enough for you to slip through. It'll close behind you, get what you got to get, and then open it back up and slip right through. Trust me, I wish somebody would have taught me that when I first started doing it because I have ADHD, so the amount of times that I've had a checklist and still left 3 or 4 things out drove me crazy. But yeah, and just in general, like, also, if you, for any reason, you go to a antique store or thrift store, anything like that, if it's furniture, even clothing, try to do some type of cleansing before bringing it into your house, because a lot of the times when people start getting haunted, nowadays I automatically go to somebody text me. No, you may have just brought a spirit in with the item that you just picked up from a thrift store or an estate sale. So definitely make sure that is cleansed and everything like that. And now, with that being said, spirits are going to be different than working with deities. It's very complex because, like, deities in themselves, they're all archetypes that we're aware of. But when it comes to land spirits and other familiar spirits, they will have their own personalities. They can straight up reject your ass. They can straight up be like, yes, pick me, pick me. And through slowly working with them, you'll be able to understand where both boundaries are set on both sides, the spirit side and then your side. I've never really came across, no, I can't say that. Just be careful with working with non-familiar spirits, as in you're not really familiar with them. Be very careful, because there are trickster spirits out there. There are spirits that will trick you into, thinking there's something else. And dear God, if you, for any reason, come across a child spirit, please make sure it is an actual child. Because a lot of the more, we'll say tricksters, because I do not use the D word, There are spirits that will present themselves to you as somebody that you can trust. 9 times out of 10, they like to use little children. Or they will present themselves to you as a little child. But as you start working with them, you're realizing that that's in fact not what they are. Um, because that's eventually how you can become what is known as possessed. But what a lot of people don't know is there are things that happen before a possession fully takes, which is the oppression part. Basically, it is going to beat you down, it's going to isolate you, it's going to cause things to where you are isolated. Hello. And the weaker you get, the more it can basically attach itself to you and wreak havoc in your life. Um, I also want to kind of slightly talk about astroparasites. If you astroproject or if you're trying to, please make sure you have the proper protections on. Because if not, you're going to get, or you could get, what is known as an astral parasite, and they are nasty little fuckers. They're basically what is exactly what it says, parasites. They can cause people that has never had anxiety, never had depression, never had migraines, all these other things. They can cause those. Now, before you automatically go saying, "Oh my God, I have an astral parasite attached to me," go through all the mundane steps, like go to your doctor and all this other shit. Don't automatically jump to magic with that. Astral parasites are really, really fucking hard to get off. I know because I've dealt with one myself, and it took about 3 years to get it off, and it took another practitioner getting it off. Also, with that, somebody last time I talked about this also mentioned it. You can also get parasites from energy healers that are working with you. They could have one and not really know it, so when they connect with you and start trying to help you, it basically latches onto you. They sure can. I had to get off one of the friends. Took several months. Right? And it sucks. Oh my God, it really sucks. Now you're probably going to ask me, well, what protection? That depends on what you're trying to do. It could be actual like jewelry. It could be sigils that you're writing on yourself. It could be you anointing yourself with oil. Now, before you try astral projecting, why don't you try second sight or biolocation sight? Basically, it's exactly what it says or sounds like. You're projecting your sight outside of your own body to view other areas or other things. 9 times out of 10, somebody can do that versus astral project. But at the same time, on the opposite scale of that, some people can be born with the ability to just be able to naturally astral project. I used to know somebody who would project itself as a bird every night and go flying around. Very weird. But yeah, I'm actually going to talk to one of my friends who is a death witch. And if you want to know what it's like talking to a death witch, I interviewed them and they also interviewed me. Their podcast, Graveyard Gatherings, and it's Hannah. They're an amazing person. And then mine, obviously, is Fire Lotus the Witch. And I think it's Take a Stroll in the Great, or Take a Stroll with the Death Witch is the episode that I'm talking about where I interviewed them. But I'm going to also ask them and check in with them to see if they can do a video on book recommendations. And then after they do, I'll get that list and then make a video to put on here. And even with books, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Speaking of books, I will be doing a book review very, very soon on... Hold that thought and I can get it. Come here. Where are you? That's not... Nope. Nope. Oh, you're in here. Probably by next Thursday, hopefully I'll be done with this. I'll be doing, Wiser sent me this, right? Yes. Wiser Books sent me this. I know it's backwards. It is Ancestral Grimoire. Create Your Personal Book of Shadows, and it is by Nancy Henderson. I'm literally on page... What page am I on? I'm on page 113. I started it when my partner got treatment, and that's how much I've read about it. This is new, as in the things that are in this book, I have never seen or heard anybody do it at all. Now, the thing that you will need with this book, you will either need a tarot deck or an oracle deck and a journal, a blank journal. It's not backwards for us. Okay, see, I always thought it was. Oh, that's so weird. But yeah, that's the book. Um, and I will be recommending this whether you are a seedling or a sprout or somebody that's extremely advanced. The stuff in this book, it's new, as in I've never even went over it, heard about it before. Like I said, you will need your tarot deck, an oracle deck, and or tarot deck, oracle deck, one of the two of those, and then a grimoire or a blank journal. And the reason is through the processes in this book, you're basically going to create your own family grimoire by speaking to three specific ancestors and writing the information down. So if you do get this book, another thing that you can do along with this is the challenge that I came up with, the 30-day spiritual challenge, which is basically spending 30 days to talk to your ancestors. Now, I believe this is like a year-long thing, depending on how it is, or depending on how you want to do it. It is very easy to follow along. Like I said, I read this in about 4 hours. It was about 3.5 hours. And I'll finish it next Thursday because that's all I got to go. And then after I finish it, when I have time, I will do a complete breakdown. And then I have like I want to say four other book reviews that I will also be doing. I've already did one of the ones that Weiser sent me, which is the newest Jake Richards book. It's a great book to have, but if you do not like Christianity in any aspect, you're not going to like that book. And then I have, what is the other book? I forgot the other title, but I have another one by them, and then I got two books somebody sent me off my book list. One of those are Spirits of the Appalachians, and then the other one is Sigil Witchcraft or Sigil Witchery. That's going to be a very interesting book to read as well. And like I said, once I work through them, I will do an in-depth review on them and see if they're recommended. But yeah, so far, this one, highly recommend by anybody, no matter if you're just starting or if you've been starting. And there are a couple of things in this book that they do differently in a way that, like I've said, I've never even heard of. So it's a very interesting book so far to read, and it's so far it's highly recommended. I think there was one thing in it that to me it's slightly, but I mean, what books nowadays can you find that where there's nothing like that in there at all? So yeah, but yeah, hands down, great book. Um, Also, just because I'm doing this as always, I'm still running the Oracle cell. And in fact, on top of running that Oracle cell, $10 gets you a full Oracle reading via email. That's 1 to 3 questions, depending on the subjects and depending on the questions, because I don't do yes or no questions. I'm also offering up 2 community services. I'm doing another honey jar, and it'll be created on the new moon this year, or this month. It's $15 per petition due to the amount of honey that's in it. And then a community candle, which is going to be an uncrossing road opening, which is free for everybody. Just email me, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com, if you're interested in the reading, the honey jar or sweetening jar, and or the community candle, and label it one of the others. And then also, when it comes to all of my other custom spell work, prices are being cut in half, as in I will work with you on the price. And I'm officially now offering, if you want to put somebody in a jar, I can help. You want to hex somebody, depending on the situation, I can do it. Basically, anything's on the table up to a certain extent. Like, I'm not going to force somebody to be with you or to fall in love with you or anything like that. But if you would like any type of custom spell work, email me. If you'd like a reading, email me. Um, with the readings, it's going to take anywhere from 1 to 5 days before I can get to it. Thursdays and Fridays being the 2 days that I don't do readings and I don't do any type of workings because my partner will be getting treatment. He'll be getting treatment on one of those days, and then the weekend normally is when I do the actual custom spell work and maybe 1 or 2 readings. Other than that, Monday through Wednesday, unless we have an appointment, I will be doing the readings. Um, but anyways, expect 1 to 5 days before I can be able to get to yours. That's $10 for that, and that sale is going all the way until the next year. You are going to have a lot to read because I'm extremely detailed in those readings. I do have the ability to channel ancestors and or spirits or spirit guides if they come through. And the way that I work, because I do have claircognizance, and if you've gotten a reading from me, you know what I mean. I'll basically, the spirits dictate how the cards are laid. And once they are laid, there are specific, if I see specific things with them as I'm laying the cards out, I will also let you know that. So a lot of the times when I mean I can connect to your spirit guides, it's not necessarily like a medium where I'm sitting here just talking to them as much as they're showing me things that you will understand better than I will, and that will come up in the reading. So, like, if I lay down a card, because I was doing one reading and I had a full on, like, flashback of memories. But I laid one card down, and it was like I was back at this cabin sitting next to, I'm assuming it was a grandmother or grandfather, both of them, and they were a kid. So like I'll get flashes like that, and I will let you know of that in the reading. And there are multiple other cards that may come up that basically signifies that your ancestors are here. And then there are some readings that I get where I will actually get full body chills, and they will straight up come through. If you've seen the video that I posted when Southern Mama, her mama was here, oh, that was an interesting read. But again, it's not guaranteed that they're going to come through. And if for any reason they have recently passed, it takes spirit time to transition over. So they may come through, they may not come through, and then they may come through with the actual artwork of the cards themselves. And if for anybody who is interested in the cards that I use, they're $34, I believe. I don't know if that's counting shipping and everything. You can find them on Etsy, their own website, but they're selling them through Etsy. And they are Flowers from the Dead. These are a oracle deck that was specifically created for. So when people start to use tarot cards, they get very, very. I was one of them. There's 78 cards in a deck. That's a lot to fucking learn or remember, depending on how you're reading the cards. So the author, who also created a tarot deck way back, well, not way back, but it's no longer in print. They created their own tarot deck and published it. They created these cards to help people build your intuition and build the confidence in your ability to read cards, which is exactly what these do. And if you can see, it's literally 1 to 2 words and an image. That's it. This is all you get. You get this deck. You get this deck. It comes with that card, which is kind of just the actual naming of it, and then it shows you a way that you can read them. And then, yeah, and I've had these for, I want to say 3 to 4 years, possibly 5. They are really, really durable, and hopefully I will be getting me a new deck soon because this one is about shot. But Flowers from the Dead, you can find them on Instagram, their own website. Now, their website is really cool outside of Etsy because they have an entire section of how they learn to self-publish. So if anybody's interested in that, you can find them there. But yeah, this deck is amazing, and I always say that I've also interviewed them. So if you want to check that out as well, you totally can. It's on my podcast. And it's very funny because they keep telling me it's not the cards, it's me, but it's the cards. It's both. But yeah, these right here will help you build that confidence in being able to read. And I think due to the fact that they're so simple, it for me it's easier to interpret because when I read somebody, it's like each person I'm reading, it's like you're a jigsaw puzzle that has not been put together yet. So it's like I shake the hell out of you, throw them out, lay the cards out, and then I put the pieces together. Um, so yeah, and I don't offer past life spell or past life readings. I have been able to successfully identify a few gods and goddesses with people who have come through the reading, and there are some readings that I did where they were not even looking for that information. It was a general one, but as I laid down some of these cards, gods and goddesses came through, and they're like, "Yo, they need to work with me." So yeah, I do have that ability as well. And like I said, you're gonna have a lot to read. How I do it is I will lay the cards out, take a picture of them, send you the picture with the entire breakdown, and like I said, you're gonna have a lot to read, and you may get called out. So just to let you know, because I've called out I haven't, but the spirits have called out people. Um, but yeah, and like I said, I offer that my brain just blanked. Road openings, uncrossings, now a little bit more on the baneful side. You name it, though, I will work with you. We'll have a magical consultation via email. We'll exchange ideas, exchange information to where I can basically create you a custom spell. And like I said, I typically do most of my spell work on the weekends. And just know that all of the stuff that I use has already been charged by the full moon and the new moon. And I use a mixture of crystals, herbs, oils, and primarily candle magic, depending on what I'm trying to do. I can also do cord cuttings. And I have successfully done a multi-person cord cutting as well. But the candles that I use burn from anywhere from 5 to 6 hours. And when it comes to the custom spell work, depending on what you're doing, I will need a full name and a birthday, including the honey jar. I'll need that, and also with the community candle, I'll need your full name and your birthday. That way, I will be able to tag lock that candle to you. Um, but yeah, I think that's gonna be it for now because I'm hopefully going to be going live on TikTok today, depending on how my day goes. But yeah, thank y'all so much for everybody who has been watching, been interacting, liking, subscribing, sharing. You know, thank y'all so much. I am hopefully gonna get back into more going live here on YouTube and TikTok. It's just with everything going on with my partner, I've got to get that like more situated. Um, yes, same. I hope y'all all have an amazing day. I hope y'all stay dry, warm, or cooled off, depending on the temperature where you live. But yeah, until then, I would talk to y'all later. And like I said, if you would like to email me, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com, and I'll respond. So yeah, until then, I also hope y'all like this video. But yeah, until then, I'll talk to y'all later.